performance will suffer. We will elaborate it. So the sources of air leakage, how air can come inside the condenser. The following are the main sources through which air may enter into the condenser, Just a minute, 1 minute, please. So, air is dissolved in water. Water at a low temperature will always contain certain amount of dissolved air. So, dissolved air in the feed water enters in the boiler, which in turn enters the condenser with exhaust steam. And then there are air leaks into the condenser through various joints due to high vacuum pressure in the condenser. Condenser pressure is low, outside pressure is high. So wherever any joint is there, small leakage is there, air will come inside. And then this is for surface condenser. If we have got direct contact type condenser or jet type condenser, then dissolved air with enters the condenser. So I have shown some direct contact type condenser. So there, when we are injecting water, with water, this air will come. Now, what is the effect of this air? Effect of this air, first thing, it will not condense. So this is called non-condensable. If it does not condense, suppose we have taken a mixture of air and water, air and steam, and then air is not condensing. So near the tube, water molecules have condensed, but air molecules have not condensed. So air molecules will surround the tube, and air molecules will make some sort of a blanket. Air will make some sort of a blanket near the tube. So it will reduce the rate of heat transfer. Obviously, the resistance will increase and it will reduce the rate of heat transfer. And then air is not getting condensed, so air is not being taken out from this condenser. So inside the gas volume will increase, and as the gas volume will increase, the pressure also will increase inside this condenser. So the condenser temperature will increase. Low rate of heat transfer will increase the condenser temperature, and then increase of pressure due to the presence of air will increase the temperature of the condenser. So by these two reasons, the temperature of the condenser will increase. That means sink temperature is increasing. If the sink temperature increases, then the efficiency of the thermal cycle, power cycle, that will reduce. So it has got a very detrimental effect on the plant performance if we allow the air to grow or to collect continuously within the condenser. So that's why air has to be taken out, and that is what I have explained earlier. So this is one of the, this is a cross section of surface condenser. It is also not very big surface condenser, medium size surface condenser, but this is the cross section. So you cross section, you see there is some sort of a pattern. Somewhere it is dark and somewhere it is white. So where it is dark, basically very closely spaced tube ends are seen. That's why it is dark. And these are paths, intentionally no tubes have been put so that, there is some sort of a path for the vapor to come. And if we take some exaggerated view, then the tubes are arranged like this. Let's say this is the end of a tube. So through this tube, water is passing, through this tube, water is flowing, through this tube, water is flowing. These are the end of the tube. And That's, I mean, thousands and thousands of tubes are there. So that's why these things are looking a little bit dark. Okay. And of course, in these portions, there are no tubes. And where we have to take out the air, what we do, we put more and more tubes. If we put more and more tubes, that means, I mean, a large amount of water flow. Locally, a large amount of water flow is there in those regions. If there is large amount of water flow, so it has got two reasons. I mean, two effects. It will condense the whatever water vapor is there. It will condense that. That means it will make a good separation between air and water. And at that portion, we can have some sort of opening and join our vacuum pump, and mostly air is there, water has been condensed due to high rate of heat transfer, and we can take away the air. Then the air that will also get cooled because we have put lot of water tubes here. So air that will also get cooled here, and if air gets cooled, then air density increases, and then it becomes easier to pump out air. So for these two reasons, that air has to be separated out and it has to be made dense. So that's why more number of water tubes are kept where we have to, from the point from where we have to extract air. So this could be one arrangement, or this could be one arrangement that we have got close spacing of tube, and from here we are taking the air out. Okay. So air extraction becomes one very important feature of the surface condensers what are there in our steam power plant. Okay. So up to this, if you have any question, please ask me. So I have told you what is condenser and what different type of condensers are there in a steam power plant. Mainly in a big steam power plant, we have got surface condensers, which are indirect type condenser, cell and tube type condenser. Though we may not have round cell, we may have, I mean, cubical box, just like a big room, very big room, we can have a condenser. And in the condenser, the tubes are very closely spaced, and some sort of air extraction should be there from the condenser. Anything else do you want to ask? Of course, there are many things regarding a condenser, even for steam condenser. Some of them have been discussed, as I have told in my NPTEL lecture. If anybody is interested, one can see. But if you have right now any question, I will try to answer. If not, then we move to the next section. Can you answer these questions? Because these kind of questions are asked in some sort of viva or job interview, that why we have steam on the cell side and water in the tube side. Why you put steam on the cell side and water in the tube side? Any idea? Any idea? Any guess? So there are several reasons why we put steam on the outside and water in inside the tube. First thing is that the steam side condensation takes place and heat transfer coefficient is very high. Water side, only forced convection takes place and heat transfer coefficient is moderate. Now, water side heat transfer coefficient can be increased by increasing the flow rate with the help of a pump very easily. Steam side, that is not required. Whatever head it is carrying or motive tendency it is carrying from the turbine, that is good enough for the mobility of steam. So that's why we want to put steam on the cell side. It could be at low velocity or almost at no velocity, and it should have more space because the volume flow rate, we have to handle a very large volume of steam. So that's why outside the tube it is preferred. From cleaning point of view, also if steam is outside, then the time to time all the condensers are to be cleaned, and that becomes easier for cleaning. So there are several reasons why steam will be outside and water will be inside. Okay. Now we are coming to cooling tower. So in the condenser, steam is cooled with the help of water, circulating water. That circulating water will become hot. That has to be cooled again, and that is being cooled in a cooling tower. So cooling tower is again a direct contact cooling device for water, direct contact heat exchanger. In direct contact condenser, water and steam comes into contact. In cooling tower, air and water, they comes into contact. So this type of cooling towers are called evaporative cooling tower or wet cooling tower. Mostly we mean evaporative or wet cooling tower when we call cooling tower. But nowadays there are almost similar volume of heat exchanger where air and water does not come into contact. Those cooling towers are called dry cooling tower. From now onwards, these slides what are there, I have just now added, and I have not sent this slide deck to you because in one or two places small description I will write and then I will mail you the slide deck. That will be more useful to you. So the working principle of a cooling tower, wet cooling tower or evaporative cooling tower, let us understand that here we have got a fan and the fan is drawing air. So these are actually, there are gap, and through this gap then atmospheric air will enter. And from the top we are injecting hot water with the help of nozzle. So when we are injecting hot water with the help of nozzle, that water will try to fall in the downward direction and air will try to move in the upward direction. There will be very intimate contact between air and water because we have kept some sort of a material which is called fill, and the fill, they try to break air and water stream time and again so that the path of air and water becomes crooked, not very straightforward, and the time taken or the time of contact between air and water, that increases. So that is your, then what happens? Water is hot and air is cold air is entering, then they are having direct contact. So as the hot water is coming in contact with cold air, so obviously there will be certain amount of sensible heat transfer. But hopefully the air is also dry and it is coming in contact with hot water. So water will try to absorb certain amount of air will try to absorb certain amount of water in the form of water vapor. Okay. That means evaporation of hot water will take place. And when evaporation of hot water will take place, evaporation will need certain amount of thermal energy. So that thermal energy will come from the body of the hot water itself. Okay. Actually, evaporation is phase transfer from liquid to vapor, but this is a mass transfer process, and due to mass transfer, I mean, how the mass transfer is taking place. Near the water, we have got 100% saturated air, but slightly away from it, we are having unsaturated air. So there is a concentration gradient of water molecule, and that's why mass transfer is taking place. When this mass transfer is taking place, for this mass transfer, certain amount of latent heat is needed, and wherever the latent heat is available, the water will take the latent heat from there. So now hot water is available, so water will release certain amount of energy, and water will get cooled. So at the bottom we will have cold water, and that cold water will again go to the condenser. So this is to the condenser, this is from the condenser, this is from the atmosphere. Dry and cold air is coming, and at the top we are releasing hot and wet air or moist air. And if the cooling tower is well designed, water will come in contact with air very intimately, and when air will go out, it will be almost 100% saturated. At the prevailing temperature, it will be almost 100% or 95-97% saturated with at the corresponding temperature. So this is the working principle of a cooling tower. So here, if we see the temperature, this is the temperature of the hot water, the water which is coming out of the cooling tower. And this is the temperature of the cold water which is coming out of the cooling tower. So this is coming out of the condenser going to the cooling tower. This is coming out of the cooling tower going to the condenser. And thermodynamically, it is possible to cool this cold water or lower the cold water temperature up to the wet bulb temperature of the ambient. That means incoming air's wet bulb temperature. Means without violating second law of thermodynamics, we can cool it up to this temperature. Below this, we cannot cool. So then this temperature practically is not achievable. Wet bulb temperature, ambient wet bulb temperature is practically not achievable. We can come very close to it, but we will not be able to achieve this. So this difference is called approach. How closely we can approach the wet bulb temperature, this is called approach, and this is called range. This is the range. Hot water temperature and cold water temperatures, this difference is range. And this range multiplied by, let's say this is delta T, this multiplied by Cp of water and mass flow rate of water is the amount of heat which is taken from the water. Okay. So this is how we can get. So cold water temperature, let's say it is Cw, and hot water temperature is Hw. Hw minus Cw is the range. And m dot w or mw dot into Cp into range, that becomes the cooling capacity of the cooling tower. Okay. And here what we are showing, that this is the dry bulb temperature if we measure, and this is the wet bulb temperature if we measure. How we measure wet bulb temperature? Any idea? You have done already? How is the wet bulb temperature measured? Hello. Did you measure wet bulb temperature anytime? Yes or no? Hello. Hello, did you measure wet bulb temperature anytime? Have you seen wet bulb thermometer? Hmm? Do you remember wet bulb thermometer?
No, sir.
No, sir. How can it be possible? In the refrigeration laboratory, you have not used any wet bulb temperature or wet bulb thermometer. That a thermometer whose bulb is wrapped with some sort of a cotton sling, and it is moistened with water, and then you rotate it with a high velocity with your hand, and then you measure the temperature, you get the wet bulb temperature. So have you done refrigeration air conditioning? Yes or no? That's what.
Sir, last time was also online, sir. We couldn't do the lab.
Okay, you have not seen the laboratory. That is sorry. But wet bulb temperature, have you heard it or not?
Yes, sir.
So sorry, you have not seen this thermometer. That is okay, understandable. But wet bulb temperature you have heard. You have heard, or you have seen, or you have studied your psychrometry chart. Yes or no? Psychrometry chart in connection with, yes, good. Then you have some idea regarding wet bulb temperature. Okay, so this is the dry bulb temperature, dry bulb thermometer. Ordinary thermometer, if we put in the air, it will give some temperature. Let's say now it will give some 30 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Celsius. And then if I put some sort of cotton wick at the bulb of the temperature, moisten it with water and rotate it. There is generally one, it is put in an wooden case, and then there is some sort of handle, rotable handle, and with that you rotate it. So then you get a temperature which will be lower than the dry bulb temperature. So that's why it is advantageous to have cooling tower, because we can cool the water, may not be up to wet bulb temperature, but maybe below the dry bulb temperature. Okay. So here you see, again, I just wanted to recapitulate the psychrometry chart. So this is your psychrometry chart. This side is your dry bulb temperature. Dry bulb temperature increases this side. This side is your moisture content, kg of water per kg of dry air. So that will be the unit, kg of water per kg of dry air. And these are relative humidity, constant relative humidity lines. So similar lines could be there, and this is 100% constant, 100% relative humidity. Okay, so that means it is fully saturated, 100% saturated air. So this side actually temperature will change, dry bulb temperature will change. This side the moisture content or water vapor content inside the air will change, and this is the constant wet bulb temperature line. So similar lines could be there, those are constant wet bulb temperature line. And almost parallel to the, not exactly parallel, there is a small angular difference, almost parallel to the line, we can have constant enthalpy line of the moist air, constant enthalpy line of the moist air. So that is what we will get in a psychrometry chart. Let's say that air and water, they are transferring heat. Forget about this whatever is written at the top. I have quickly, whatever I have got, I have put it here. So the water temperature, water enters at, let's say, this high temperature. This is the TW in. At this temperature, this is 90 degree Fahrenheit. At 90 degree Fahrenheit, water enters in the cooling tower. And here this is the ambient air condition. So ambient air, we can get its temperature, probably it is 80 degree Fahrenheit, and it is not 100% saturated. Some sort of degree of saturation is there. Okay, so it is unsaturated. So then there will be heat transfer between the air and water. So air will get more and more moisture. Moisture increases in this direction. So air along the, length of the or height of the cooling tower, air condition will change like this. And when air will come out, it will have almost 100% saturation. Of course, its temperature will be lower than the incoming hot water temperature. And water, when it will come out, its temperature will be below the dry bulb temperature. The dry bulb temperature, ambient dry bulb temperature, let's say it is 80 degree Fahrenheit. But water, when it is coming out, its this thing will be temperature will be below the dry bulb temperature of ambient. But it will also be below. Sorry, it will also be above. It cannot go up to this. Corresponding to this air, the wet bulb temperature is this. Water could have been cooled up to this, but it is not possible. Infinite length of cooling tower is needed. So it will be in between the dry bulb temperature and wet bulb temperature of the ambient, but it will be less than the dry bulb temperature of the ambient. So that's why we get some sort of a benefit from the cooling tower. And we pay for it. We pay for it because we have to sacrifice certain amount of water. We have to allow the evaporation of certain amount of water. Is this point clear? Psychrometrically, is it clear that how air and water, they are transferring heat mutually when they are coming in contact? Is it all right, or do you have some question to ask? So basically, it is a very special kind of heat exchanger, direct contact type heat exchanger, and direct contact heat exchangers are few in number. And here the advantage is that we can go below the dry bulb temperature. Any question, any comment? Otherwise, I will proceed. So, have you been told the principle of cooling tower earlier, or today only it is being introduced to you? Did you know it? Yes? No?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this is one interesting thing and important aspect for power plant and also for refrigeration, air conditioning plant, etc. Please try to keep it in mind. So there are different types of cooling tower. Cooling tower, firstly, it can be depending on draft. What is draft? Draft, already in boiler we have learned about draft, but draft is basically the mechanism which causes the air to flow. So depending on draft, cooling tower can be divided into two broad categories. One is natural draft and another is your mechanical draft. By the way, have you seen a cooling tower? How many of you have seen a cooling tower? कोई नहीं? Have you seen a cooling tower? If you say no, that's not a crime. If you say yes, that also not a credit. It is only a fact.
No.
No, sir.
No, you have seen many cooling tower you have seen. near any building, big building, office building, etc. Those wooden structures are there. Even behind our main building, that coffee shop is there. Okay, behind the main building. You enter the main building, you cross the foyer, you come straight without going anywhere. So you come out of the building, there is a coffee shop. Okay, and there is this bank. And opposite to that, there is the road. Opposite to that road, on one side of the road, that bank means ATM. The ATM is there and the coffee shop is there. And opposite to that, opposite side of the road, there is a cooling tower. Now, can you recall cycle stand, cooling tower? Can you recall? Yes or no? Main building. From the Bidhan Chowk, you are entering the main building. You are not going to the library. You are walking across the foyer, coming the other side. On your which side? Right hand side, there will be a coffee shop, coffee kiosk, and then there will be the ATM. On your left hand side, there will be a cooling tower. And then you proceed, you will get the cycle stand. Can you remember now? क्या है भाई? Yes or no? कुछ तो बोलो. Okay, so
Yes,
these are these wooden structure, and you will always get jhar sound will get, because always water is pouring from the top. So those are very small cooling tower. Those are no way can be compared to your I mean cooling tower which is used in a power plant. Means I can give a comparison that if you have got your cycle pumper, that is also a compressor, and you have got a compressor of a jet engine. So how these two things could be compared? The cooling tower, what I have mentioned, and the cooling tower of a power plant, they can be compared like that. Okay. So those cooling tower does not have any fan. Okay. So those are called atmospheric cooling tower. Other than that, the cooling tower can have a fan, and when the cooling tower is having a fan, we call it mechanical draft cooling tower. Otherwise, the cooling tower can have a very big chimney, and then it is called natural draft cooling tower. So here you see, I will show you some photograph. But here you see, this is a natural draft cooling tower. So here the hot water is injected, and here we have got the fill. Here we can get the cold water, and above the hot water, this is the big thing. This is actually a chimney. This chimney, due to the difference of density, hot air density and cold air density, so it will create some sort of a draft or airflow. So we will get very high airflow. If you get the chance of getting inside a natural draft cooling tower, you can go inside and you can see how I mean what a great airflow you can get. You can experience inside. Of course, inside is very, very uncomfortable, because here the air will be almost 100% saturated, hot and 100% saturated. So you will feel very uncomfortable. But for some time, if you go inside, you can find that very high airflow rate is there inside the tower, though there is no fan at all. And these are all mechanical draft cooling tower. Mechanical draft cooling tower, a fan can push air through this from the bottom. So this is called a forced draft cooling tower. Or a fan, here there is 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 a fan. So a fan can draw air through the water, and it can be called an induced draft cooling tower. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are induced draft cooling tower. This is a forced draft cooling tower. This is a natural draft cooling tower. In the cooling tower, as I have shown that there is a fill, through the fill, air and water that mixes very thoroughly. So these are fill, and sometimes there need not be any fill for small cooling tower. So there is a fill is there, fill is there. Here also there is a fill, and water will be sprayed or sprinkled from the top. And then air can enter from the bottom, water can fall from the top. So counter current kind of arrangement could be there, or air can enter from the side and water can fall from the top. Cross flow kind of arrangement could be there. So this is cross flow, this is cross flow, this is counter flow, this is counter flow, this is counter flow, and this is also counter flow. So either there could be cross flow or there could be counter flow. So these are the different type of cooling tower which we are having. And in power plant, generally we use either this counter current with fill, this kind of cooling tower, or this cross flow kind of cooling tower, or this natural draft kind of cooling tower. Forced draft cooling towers are generally small. Not many design is there with very large volume or capacity of the cooling tower. Here some special cooling towers are there. I will come afterwards. So here you can see this is a natural draft cooling tower, very large. And this establishment, what kind of power plant it is? Can you tell me? This is a power plant. What kind of power plant it is? Nuclear. Very good. How come? So from this dome, you have understood that it is a nuclear power plant. Very good. Who has told it? Good. Compliment to you. And always you will find with nuclear power plant, or most of the cases, they will show a natural draft cooling tower. The reason is natural draft cooling tower does not need a fan. That means if there is any kind of failure, electricity failure, etc., then also this natural draft cooling tower will work as long as hot water reaches this cooling tower. So nuclear reactors are always, people talk a lot about reliability. So this kind of passive system gives a good reliability that if there is fan failure also, even then, as it does not depend on the fan, it will go on cooling. It does not mean that natural draft cooling towers are not used elsewhere. Natural draft cooling towers are used in other kind of cooling tower, other kind of power plant also. But invariably, you will find with your nuclear power plant, at least at 90% cases, 95% cases, they show a natural draft cooling tower. Natural draft cooling tower, if you see that it has got some sort of a, let me go here, venturi kind of a shape. From the outside, it looks like a venturi. There is a converging section, there is a diverging section. Why it is like this? Why it is like this? Why there will be a venturi-like shape of the cooling tower? Any idea? ठीक है भाई, time नहीं है. The venturi-like shape, people say many things. That is wrongly. Some people say, that it is due to, it will increase the velocity. वो सब कुछ नहीं है. This is a very large structure. civil engineering structure, cell structure, and this cell has to be made thinner for low cost, low weight, etc. And if we give some sort of a curvature, then the cell will become stable, but we can go for thinner cell. So it is purely from civil engineering or construction structural point of view. It has got no thermal or fluid mechanics significance. That's why it is given this kind of, curved shape or Venturi kind of a shape. All right. So here we can see the mechanical draft cooling tower. It is showing from this figure, it looks that it is counterflow cooling tower. Air is entering through this, water will be entering somewhere here, and then there will be fan. So these are all fan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 fans are there. Basically, these are all separate cooling tower, or they call cell of a cooling tower. So cooling tower cell. If necessary, 1 or 2 you can, you may not operate also. You can separate it. And there could be valve. So valve you close, fan you close. So depending on your requirement, you can add number of cells or do not operate a few cells. So I have given these 2 photographs to give you some sort of an idea that how big a cooling tower could be. So though cooling tower nobody bothers, but cooling tower is a very important part of the power plant, and probably it is the largest heat exchanger in the power plant. Probably it is the largest heat exchanger in the power plant. Okay. So now we come to some sort of a special, I have not written anything. I will send this slide deck. So this is kind of a hybrid cooling tower. Hybrid cooling tower, because you see it has got some sort of a chimney. It will give you natural draft, and you can see a lot of fans are there. So it is giving you fan draft plus the natural draft. This is a cooling tower. It is having multiple fan. Multiple fan, the advantage is, see the plume which is coming out of the cooling tower. If there are multiple fan, then all the plumes, they will get connected and a single large plume will be there. This plume will not make any kind of short circuit. Without any uninterrupted way, it will go up. And then also its footprint will be small, water pipeline will be small. So though not many people have adopted this kind of design, but it has got several advantages. When we go for large scale, there is several advantages. This is a dry cooling tower, as I have told. Water comes here and it remains only through the pipeline. So there is no contact between air and water, and air is drawn like this, and this is the fan and goes like this. So just like a common heat exchanger, liquid to gas heat exchanger, it is a dry cooling tower. And this is a combination of wet and dry cooling tower. So here hot water is injected and air is going out, and then air passes through this, plus some air is drawn from here where there are pipelines through which hot water is passing. So here hot water is getting cooled with the contact of air, plus that hot water is being sprayed below and getting cooled. So this is what we will get, wet and dry cooling tower. Okay. These are fields. So 2 types of fields are there. This is called a splash type field. There are obstacles. So water, just like rain, it is coming and falling on one of these obstacles. It is breaking into smaller droplet. Again, it is falling on another obstacle and breaking into droplet like this. Or there could be film type field. Zigzag path is provided through which air and water will come. So water, when coming from the top, will get divided into like this. Again, get combined, divided like this, and air will flow through this. So thin film of air, thin film of water, and over which air will flow. And again, water will combine and divide. So we will get a very good amount of heat transfer. This is called film. And this is a drift eliminator. I will give some small description when I will send it to you. Now, fan is drawing the air. Water is falling in the downward direction and hot air will go out. When the hot air will go out, it will also take small droplet of water. That is a loss of water, but physically it will carry. So that is a loss of water. And at the same time, when this water droplet will go to nearby structure, car parking place, so it will get deposited over there, will cause corrosion and will cause some sort of a objectionable local effect. So that's why this water droplet are to be eliminated as far as possible. So that's why after the water and air comes in the in contact, when it is going out of the contact, air and water is meant to pass through this zigzag path. Air being lighter, it will take this zigzag path easily. Water being heavier, it will make some sort of obstruction and fall back. So this is called drift eliminator. Drift eliminator I have shown, but I have not told you that here you see there is a drift eliminator. This is basically a drift eliminator. This is the film, but this is the drift eliminator. Just before the fan, drift eliminator is there. This is the film, but this is the drift eliminator. Here also we have got the drift eliminator. So these drift eliminators are also there in a cooling tower. In a cooling tower, as I have told in the morning, let me repeat that 3 to 5%, 5% is very high. Around 3% of water loss is there due to drip loss, due to evaporation loss. And again, here also you have to go for blow down. Otherwise, the solid concentration in the cooling tower will increase. So we have to, we have to leave away certain amount of water, and fresh water we have to give in the cooling tower circuit. So this is your blow down. Blow down has to be done for the cooling tower. Lastly, let me finish it telling that maintenance of cooling tower is very important. Now, cooling tower, this is part of the water circuit, but water is coming in contact with air. And cooling tower is a very large space. So in the cooling tower, there could be vegetative growth. Vegetative growth means not trees, etc., but algae formation is quite possible. Particularly, those film type fields are there, so algae formation is there. And they will choke the path. So then what you do, you put some sort of chemical which will prevent the formation of algae or vegetative kind of thing. But generally those chemicals are not good for your tubes of the condenser. So they will create fouling to the tubes of the condenser. So a very good balance is to be maintained so that neither the tubes of the condenser are fouled, nor in the cooling tower this vegetative kind of biofouling is there. So this is very important for cooling tower maintenance. Okay. With this, I like to end. If you have got any question, then please ask me. Any question regarding either cooling tower or any topic we have covered so far for power plant? Well, of course, this is not the best way to interact and to teach, but could you get at least some idea regarding power plant, steam power plant? Could you get some idea?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Certain thing we could not do, of course, due to paucity of time, like pollution aspect of it, coal. But if you have understood most of the important things, those things, if sometimes needed, you can pick it up. Okay. We will have one test on Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. I will send a mail right now, and then as one of you have suggested on Tuesday, I have talked to everybody, means those who will arrange the exam. So 3 to 5, 2 hours test we will be there. Not 3 hour test, it will be a 2 hours test. And then I'll write it in the mail, but then in the last test, entire syllabus will be covered. In the coming test, for my portion, we will cover what? We will cover the steam generator and the nozzle. Those problems, etc., what we have done for nozzle, steam nozzle and steam generator. And in the last test, we will cover the entire part of it.
So steam turbine is a part of steam nozzle or?
No, steam turbine I will not, Sunday's question I will not have anything from steam turbine. Okay. Steam turbine, you take some more time, you prepare in between. If you have got any question, any problem, you have got difficulty, please consult me. So steam turbine problems I will not ask, or steam turbine, any theoretical thing also I will not ask. Steam turbine will be left for your steam turbine, condensers, governing of steam turbine, losses, all these things will be left for the last exam. Okay. So you will have some more time to prepare it. Only nozzles, nozzle as a hydrodynamic device, fluid mechanical device, I will ask from in the Sunday's class, Sunday's test. Okay. I'll write a mail. Thank you. You have cooperated with me, so I am thankful to you. And also, initially I could not take classes, etc. You know, so but everything you have cooperated with us, both the teacher. So I really grateful to all of you. Maybe sometimes when things will be better, we will meet. I have not seen, though some of the names, etc. are familiar because you are from my department, but we could not meet, we could not see any of you. So definitely we do not like that. Well, I am available. So if any question in between, you can ask me. I am now leaving the meeting. Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.